Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the special City Council meeting for this evening, Monday, August 19th at 7 o'clock here in City Council Chambers, 191 Cabot Street. I'd like to welcome everybody on BevCam and also in the audience, also the mayor's team for joining us this evening. Can we please call the roll?
Bowen. Here. Crowley.
Here.
Feldman, Hausman, Rotundo. Here. Spang. Here. St. Hilaire. Here. Sweeney. Here. And Flowers.
Councilor Rotundo, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So this evening we have a couple public hearings. One is scheduled for 7:15 and the second one is 7:45. We'll go through working on we have some signups if anybody is interested in speaking during those hearings, and we'll have them over on the table for everybody. We will go through acceptance of minutes, communications, officers, boards. We'll break for some committee work and then come back and finish up with the evening. So let's go ahead and we get started with acceptance of the meeting prior minutes, please. We have Finance and Property for June 4th, Finance and Property for June 6th, Finance and Property for June 11th, Special City Council meeting on June 13th, Public Services Committee meeting on June 13th, regular City Council meeting for June 17th, Special City Council meeting on June 18th, Legal Affairs Committee meeting June 24th, Special City Council meeting for July 29th, Public Services Committee meeting on August 4th. I make a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6-0. 7-0. Forgot to count myself. Thank you. Communications from His Honor the Mayor.
Order 213. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $102,973.14 grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Assistance to Firefighter Grants Program to support the purchase of personal escape devices, including safety rope, descender hook, rope bag, and carabiner for each member of the Beverly Fire Department. In addition, training costs and overtime backfill as required by the union contract are included as well. The required 10% match of $10,297.32 will be provided from the fire department budget. The Assistance to Firefighters Grants Program is designed to enhance the health and safety of public and firefighting personnel and to provide support for emergency responders regarding fire, medical, and all hazard events. Since 2001, AFG grants have provided firefighters and other first responders with critically needed resources necessary for protecting the public and emergency personnel from fire and related hazards. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
Move this to Finance and Property.
Order 214. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $54,100 municipal local cybersecurity grant through the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grants Research. This grant funding will be used to implement multi-factor authentication and to create a cybersecurity incident response plan. The purpose of this grant funding is to assist units of local government with improving cybersecurity by reducing susceptibility to cybersecurity threats, reducing cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and mitigating the consequences of cybersecurity attacks by enhancing specific cybersecurity capabilities. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will go to Finance and Property.
Order 215. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly was awarded an FY25 $120,000 Massachusetts Department of Mental Health grant to continue funding the Essex County Training and Technical Assistance Center Crisis Intervention Training Program at the Beverly Police Department. The Essex County Training and Technical Assistance Center provides trauma response training, crisis intervention training to police officers in the Essex County area of Massachusetts with the goal of improved services in responding to citizens with behavioral health challenges. Additionally, the Essex County TTAC CIT program provides police departments with tools to implement critical response protocols, in-house clinical response, and assistance in identifying and developing relationships with community-based behavioral health agencies. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, donation, earmark, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
Finance and Property.
Order number 216. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly was awarded a Massachusetts Department of Mental Health Jail Arrest Diversion Program grant for fiscal year 2025 to continue funding 2 co-responder clinicians to support the Beverly Police Department's Community Impact Unit. The grant is for $200,000 for a 1-year period. Specifically, this grant funding will be used to fund the co-responder clinician positions that assist police staff on calls for individuals who need mental health and/or substance use supports. The Jail Arrest Diversion Program grant is a regional collaborative effort between the Beverly, Essex, Gloucester, Ipswich, Manchester, and Rockport Police Departments. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, donation, earmark, or gift to the City Council can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will also go to Finance and Property.
Order 217. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $76,510 Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant from the U.S. Department of Energy. This federal funding is allocated to assist local governments in implementing strategies to reduce energy use, to reduce fossil fuel emissions, and to improve energy efficiency. Municipalities with a population above 35,000 are automatically eligible. It is not a competitive grant. Communities can use this flexible source of funding to catalyze long-term, impactful, and self-sustaining plans, projects, and programs to build a clean and equitable energy economy. Discussions are ongoing for the most impactful use of these grant funds. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, gift, or donation to the city can be expended for its prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will also go to Finance and Property.
Order 218. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded an $863.86 MARTAP Helping Hand mini grant from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. This grant will be used to purchase GPS lockboxes for the Council on Aging, shuttle buses, and vans. The addition of lockboxes helps keep passengers and drivers safe by limiting distractions. There is a 10% match for this grant that will be provided by the Council on Aging budget. MARTAP established this Helping Hand mini grant program to assist regional transit authorities, councils on aging, friends groups, and nonprofit transportation providers to improve delivery of transportation services in rural and smaller urban areas. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gifts to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will go to Finance and Property.
Order number 219. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $149,325 grant from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation 2024 Community Transit Grant Program. This grant will allow the city to acquire a new one-type LF 16-passenger minibus van with electronic accessibility lift ramp for the Senior Center's transportation program. The new vehicle will replace a 12-year-old vehicle and provide a safe, reliable transportation for older adults and individuals with disabilities. The match funding for this grant is $38,511.60, which will be provided from the Council on Aging's operating budget. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will go to Finance and Property.
Order 220. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $398,300 four-year grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Aviation Administration for completion of an aeronautical environmental assessment, notification, and review of runways 16 to 34 and 9 to 27 for the Beverly Regional Airport. Grant award funding is allocated as follows. Federal, $358,470, state match, $19,915, 5%, local match, $19,915, 5%, total $398,300. The 5% match funding of $19,915 for this grant is required from both state and local municipality. The matching funds from the city are budgeted within the airport operating budget and will be transferred upon City Council acceptance approval of this grant. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmarks, donations, or gifts to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will go to Finance and Property.
Order number 221. Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the Beverly Veterans Advisory Council would like to gift the installation of a memorial bench in memory of U.S. Army veteran and longtime Beverly Veterans Agent Jerome J. Jerry Jalebi, Jr. at the Beverly Farms Branch Library. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and mayoral approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council accept and approve this gift by taking action on this matter at your Monday, August 19th, 2024 meeting. Thank you. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill.
This will go to Finance and Property also. Communications from other city officers and boards.
Order 222. Dear City Councilors, please see enclosed petroleum storage registration. This is a change in the company name for an existing registered business. City Council approval is needed to complete the process. Thank you for your assistance concerning this matter. Respectfully, Lisa Kent, City Clerk.
This will go to Legal.
Order 223. This is an application for Bridge Street Beverly Auto Services, Inc., 83 to 85 Bridge Street for a secondhand motor vehicle Class 2 dealer's license. This is a new owner and name change.
This will also go to Legal.
Order 224. A discontinuance for Bridge Street Automotive MTB Enterprises, 8385 Bridge Street, if the previous order is approved.
Okay. This will go to Legal also.
All right, order 225, and this is the second quarter 2024 N192 Replacement Project Citizens Advisory Committee update.
I recommend that we take and receive and place on file. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, order 226. This is a letter from Councilor Spang with constituent inquiries relating to the Public Services Committee work.
Okay, let's send this to Public Services. See if we can get communications. Before? Okay, let's do communications, applications, and petitions.
Okay. This is a request for a waiver of the City Ordinance, Chapter 1, 113-2, prohibiting possession of consumption of alcohol in a public way or in public spaces.
This will go to legal also.
All right.
Okay, with that, we're going to open the first public hearing, the 7:15 public hearing. Order 201.
Okay. Order number 201, ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, August 19th, 2024, at 7:15 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, City Council Chambers, relative to an appropriation to transfer funds related to the National Grid MOA 115 kV electric transmission cable project reimbursements in the amount of $410,000 to be deposited into the general fund miscellaneous revenue, and will require that the City Council appropriate $410,000 to be transferred into the existing project fund 6321. And this was published on Monday, August 5th.
Super. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President. How are you?
How are you? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As the letter stated, this is a fairly typical type of transaction when we receive monies before free cash is set. Before we set the tax rate, we're able to adjust the operating budget accordingly. In this case, we'll be receiving an additional $410,000 that was not budgeted as revenue anywhere. We have to receive that by statute into the general fund. And we can't expend anything from the general fund without an appropriation from the City Council. So what we're asking is that you allow us to reappropriate the $410,000 that we'll be receiving from National Grid to a revolving fund to fund engineering costs associated with oversight of the 115 kV project that's ongoing. It's basically the exact same mechanism we used 2 years ago now for the same type of situation where there's a reimbursement check coming from National Grid that we then need to appropriate. I'm happy to answer any specifics about mechanics. I know Commissioner Collins will be here shortly for the other public hearings, so if there's project-specific questions, I'm sure he'd be willing to answer those as well at some point.
Councilors, any questions? Mr. Hausman.
Afternoon, Mr. Ailes, for the record. Yeah, I guess my only, well, I have a couple of different questions, but the first one is in direct response to what you just said. So the mayor's letter indicates that the money has already been received. As we've already received these funds, the appropriation will be, so, but you just said that when the funds come in, so you could clarify
So it doesn't matter whether the funds come in after the appropriation or before the appropriation. The way we're mechanically doing this is we will increase our expected miscellaneous revenue when we set the tax rate by $410,000. So we increase the revenue side of the equation, and then the appropriation will increase the expenditure side of the equation and allow us legally to spend that money. The timing of when that money comes in doesn't matter as long as it's before the end of the fiscal year. In this case, we just happen to have the check in-house downstairs in advance of this order. The statute allows us to receive funds as we receive them and deposit them. We just can't expend them without a council action.
So the money has been received?
The money has been received, correct.
In your office. Okay, thank you. Is there, as a result of the conversation around these funds, has there been any written amendment to the MOA?
Not a formal one. This is outside of the MOA, a recognition by National Grid that they should be providing additional funds because the 315 that they originally provided through the original appropriation, there was a component related to consultation, engineering consultation, and there was a component related to detail work. The engineering consultation of $315,000, that's been spent. So we're out of money, and we said to them, look, we need more money to get through the rest of this project. And so that amount was agreed on by the engineering department and National Grid, is my understanding.
So is the additional, through you, Mr. Vice President, is the additional funding related to the Bobrick consultant? Is that what I mean, my question
It will
really
be a continuation of the Bobrick consulting agreement, correct?
And is that the entirety of what these sums will be applied to, or are there additional expenditures outside of the Bobrick contract?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Will there be additional expenditures as part of this money outside of the Bobrick contract, or is the Bobrick contract the sole entity that's going to be the recipient of these additional funds?
I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so I don't have that answer in front of me. I believe that Bobrick is doing the lion's share of the engineering work, but I can't say for certain that there might not be another, side component to the work that they're doing.
But primarily, I gather,
Primarily,
it has
yes.
to do with that consulting contract on site. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Council Bowen.
Thank you. And this is sort of related, and it may be more of a program question for Commissioner Collins than a financing question, but I similarly was just trying to sort of map the process, in part because there are lots of unforeseen things that have happened with this project. Maybe we foresaw them, but it is dragging on and having more of an impact than we would all like. So just knowing how all these things happen and what potential there is for future funds is important. So my understanding was that this was worked out in the spring when the 18 months worth of funding for roughly one engineer's kind of full-time oversight was going to be fully expended, and is intended to extend both the time and capacity so that we can have 2 engineers to cover the larger number of work sites that have come through in reality. So just wanted to check that out and see how long this tranche of funding is likely to get us, and sort of how any changes in the scope when we went from 300,000 in funding it's not really part of our budget, it's not taxpayer money, but that more than doubled for this big project that needs a lot of oversight and day-to-day. So just sort of how that all came through, and whether that same principle applies to other aspects of the MOA or other aspects of the work.
Good evening, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Acting President, Counselor, I only heard part of your question, but I asked Mr. Ailes to step aside because what he couldn't do while he was trying to answer Counselor Hausman's question is what I did, which was call the commissioner, who was on his way for the 7:45 hearing. And yes, in fact, the whole of the $410,000 is for that field engineering service, because the job is more than Grid thought it would be. When we were fighting them and you were fighting them to not use this route, we kept telling them there is ledge everywhere. You will be here a whole lot longer than you think. And so, in fact, that whole $410,000 is for additional hours, additional time. To your question, I do not believe we've had a second Bobrick employee. I think it's continued to be one in the field. They submit a weekly report. They're out there daily, and they're checking where each crew is working, who's the foreman of the crew, whether they get details, kind of managing that flow of information, and making sure that the work they're doing is consistent with the approved plans. Correct? So that's the best I can answer your question. Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, you may.
I always get it slightly wrong. Thank you. That does answer most of it, and probably worth double checking on that capacity, because I had checked in with the engineering team to learn more about that, and maybe I just wrote down the wrong note, but thought it was increasing the capacity sort of on a day-to-day basis. So I think my follow-up question is, if we do have that additional capacity, I would love to see that consulting engineer consistently participating in the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings, so that we know there's always a specialist there with the team helping translate back and forth between resident concerns and the team. I know those meetings are incredibly valued by both sides of that table, and continue to be difficult because there is a lot of technical work to try and figure out how to meet resident needs while maintaining those technical standards. And I don't know if it was a timing constraint previously that limited that, or just the nature of the role, but given that we have more funding available for that type of technical oversight, would encourage the city to build that into the contract going forward. And I guess the question about how long this will take us is probably a Commissioner Collins question.
How much longer the job will take?
Well, how much longer this $400,000, $410,000 will carry our ability to provide oversight on the project?
I think it's intended to take through the rest of the job, but if it doesn't, we'll be back to them for more money. I mean, that's one of the requirements, really the obligations they have is to ensure that that third-party engineer is paid and in the field, right? So, I mean, we'll be tracking that. As far as the BOBREC employee, right, that third party that we brought on, coming to CAC meetings, I guess I'll just look to the two co-chairs and, you know, if that makes sense to you, to have them come to a meeting or two and see if that brings that added value. I mean, it is, I'm going to guess it's roughly, you're meeting twice a month, right, every other week. You know, I think the first step would be getting them to a meeting and you know, seeing if that makes sense to you folks, but well, we can follow up if it makes sense to you to try to do that.
Counselor Houseman? Any?
Yeah, just to follow up through you, Mr. Vice President. Yeah, we've had the BOBREC representative there, I believe once. So it's not exactly, you know, regular communication. I guess what I would do is ask members of the Citizen Advisory Committee when we meet next, the degree to which that would be, you know, helpful to the conversations we've had. We certainly have had a lot of regular, I mean, obviously we meet regularly with National Grid. We have only on an ad hoc basis really addressed sort of city side engineering, but you know, we'll be meeting soon again, and I think it's a very worthwhile idea to bring up again and see. I don't know if my co-chair has an opinion, but.
I think that predated my time, actually, on the CAC. So I think it would be fine for a meeting, but I'm not sure that, I don't think one of the issues is that people are not understanding what National Grid is explaining. So it may be helpful to have them there for a meeting, but I'm not sure that's where the communication is breaking down. It's more that a lot of unplanned things happen, and so getting information to people between meetings is more of what we tend to focus on.
Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Houseman.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I know I've been in transit all day, but I know there's an attempt to meet, actually on an ad hoc basis, with the group and the mayor and some of the city staff this Wednesday. I think we're still trying to figure out, well, I should say, I've been in the dark because I've been in the car driving, but hopefully there'll be enough attendance for that meeting this Wednesday night at 7 at the Sawyer Room. I don't know if we've heard back enough from the other parties, National Grid and the members, to really have a firm idea about whether or not that proposed date is going to work. But it is in the works, and I think it's a good question to bring up at that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all helpful. I guess maybe since Commissioner Collins has joined us, can just repeat the sort of overarching question, which was just the process by which we reached the end of what $315,000 could buy us in consulting engineering services, given the real scope of the project and that it extended past the 18-month that was originally budgeted for, and sort of the process of that money coming in, if it's still on the reimbursement basis as the previous one was, or it sounds like this is more of a prepayment negotiated separately. So just a little bit more about how that happened and whether it's applicable to any of the other challenges that may come up in the remaining year plus, where the city may need additional support from National Grid.
Commissioner Collins, could you? Sir, thank you. Appreciate your being here with us.
Good timing, I guess, huh?
It was. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Maybe one at a time. The question, what would you like? There was maybe a number of things there?
Yeah, so the first one just being if you could walk us through a little bit of the process of how we got there to having the additional $400,000 available, what it covers.
Well, the process is the contract, National Grid said they would be out of here by now, a long time ago. And so, and they also didn't plan on having up to 11 crews at a time. So the original allotment, the original allocation didn't go as far as in the calendar as we thought it might, because there was a lot more work in a lot shorter time. And the limits, the calendar, the schedule of the jobs greatly extended. So we had reached out to National Grid a while ago and told them that we're out of money for engineering or going to run out of money. And they started the process of negotiating. They asked us to put the two parties, Bobrick and National Grid, together, and we figured based on their estimated schedule, this is what it'll take to complete the job and to staff the job so we can have eyes and ears on the job for the rest of it.
Yes, you may. Please. Continue.
Great, thank you. So just one clarification on that piece. So going forward through the end of the project, do we have just the one person available for oversight, or do we now have more capacity available given the number of sites?
No, that's the thing. From fairly early on, they went from 4 crews, and that was fine. But when they went to 11 crews, they brought in 2 and sometimes 3 people to try to cover all 11 crews simultaneously. Now we generally have 1 to 2 people in the field, depending on how much work is going on, some of it. If you have 5 crews all on East Lothrop Street, then you can cover that because you walk back and forth between them. So as the job becomes a little bit more condensed, we might be able to go back down to 1. But right now, we're trying to cover it with 2 people. And so.
Yes, continue.
Thank you. And then the second piece was really just about whether that same process will be applicable to any of the other, we had police details in the memorandum of understanding, we had the paving amount in the memorandum of understanding. If those similarly run over budget, run into difficulties, is this the same process the city will go through?
Well, we're not paying the police details. It doesn't go through us, goes directly to National Grid. So I'm sure the police detail budget for them went way over because the job's taken longer and there's a lot more crews out there than they anticipated. So, but that's not necessarily our concern. Financially, it's not our concern directly, other than until you go home, turn the light switch on. So.
Yes, one more.
Thank you. This one might actually be a question for Mr. Ailes. So when the first tranche of money came through in October of 2022, it was us appropriating the funds to be spent so that they could be spent and we could be reimbursed by National Grid. And that included money for police details and for the consulting contract. And now it's the receipt of money that has already come in for forward-looking spending. So if you can just clarify again that.
Yeah, just
Trail
to,
and
and I don't mean to correct Commissioner Collins, but a lot of times I'm stuck in the numbers and he's on the ground, managing the project. But the police detail piece that came in originally was originally part of the $470,000 that we did back 2 years ago. $315 for engineering and $155 and some change for detail work. That was designed in the MOA to really just cover not the project, but if there's any need for detail work beyond the path of the project that the city might deem appropriate given the way the streets run, one-ways, traffic patterns, things like that, to help smooth out any, traffic problems. So to date, they've only spent, of that 155, spent about $50,000 of it. So it seems to be a reasonable amount to carry us through the end of the project at this point. There could always be wrinkles that get thrown our way, but we think it's okay. Does that answer the question? Okay, yeah, sorry, Mike.
No. I mean, those were, yeah. I mean, as Brian pointed out, those are directed patrols at the surrounding neighborhoods, and they'll continue to do that with that budget.
Anything else? Counselor Houseman.
Just one question to whoever this is most, has the best knowledge to answer the question. I'm sure National Grid does not, out of its own goodwill, part with $410,000. What is the leverage, if you will, or the statutory requirement, whatever, what is the requirement for National Grid to provide this? What did the city bring to the table in terms of being able to say, you need to do this or else, because you're required to? Is it in the MOA?
Yeah, spelled out in the MOA, and the agreement was that they would give us X amount, and if it wasn't sufficient, the job took longer, they would give us more. So there was a door left open to bring this back up.
Okay, thank you.
Specifically this item.
Thank you. That's all my only question.
Anything else from the council members? Nope. Anyone here from the public is here to speak on this order? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close this public hearing, and this will go back to Finance and Property. Councilors, we have approximately 10 minutes till the next public hearing. Do we think we can get some committee work done and then come back for that public hearing, then break back to committee and finish up? Saying that, let's break for committee work. We will have Finance and Property here. Legal will have the back room there. Public Services will go to the bench. If we can get everybody back here by 43, that'll be great. Thank you.
Councilor Sweeney, it's just you and I tonight. Try to get through as much as we can. Ms. Barrett, we have a number of grants tonight. You've been busy this summer. Do you want to take them up one at a time, or do you have anything to add? Okay. Great. So we'll start with Order 213. This is a grant for $102,973 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Anything you wanted to share about this one? Please.
I was super happy.
And actually teach the folks how to use the new equipment. So used in a very specific case in certain emergencies, but very, very important.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 2-0. I guess before we move on to the other grants, I want to revisit the order that just came back to us from our public hearing, Order 201. This is the appropriation from National Grid for $410,000 to be deposited in the general fund. Counselor Sweeney, do you have any further questions?
I move that we approve order number 201.
I will second. All in favor? Aye. Approved 2-0. Okay. Go back to order 214. This is another grant, $54,000, public safety grant for cybersecurity. Ms. Barrett?
Yes, thank you. This grant is so the city can implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, and also to create a CERT plan, a crisis cybersecurity incident response plan, also known as a CERT plan. We actually need to have these two things in place, I believe, by July 1st to maintain our insurance. So should we be hacked or have some sort of a cyber incident, we would always want insurance to cover the city and protect the city from any liability. So we're really thrilled to receive this grant, and we're going to implement both of those things using a consultant. And
Okay.
Russ Fisk and I worked on this grant together, and he'll be leading the project with the consultant.
Counselor Sweeney, any questions, comments?
No questions. I move that we approve order number 214.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Approved 2-0. We'll move to order 215. This is a grant for $123,000, Department of Mental Health, to the Beverly Police Department, crisis intervention training.
Yes, so this is a new grant for the city. We actually were awarded 4 months of funding in fiscal '24 from March to June 30th, and this is the grant for fiscal '25. And this program is going to be run out of the Beverly Police Station. It's for all of Essex County, and it will train law enforcement in crisis intervention training. So responding to individuals who have behavioral health issues, suicidal, like autism spectrum, and like substance use in de-escalation techniques. And we have Sergeant Ted Lane, and our former co-responder clinician, Lisa Macario, is our clinical director. So they're co-leading that program, and we're really excited about it. And they've been ordering all of the equipment and supplies, and it will launch, I believe, after September 1st.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Counselor Sweeney, any comments, questions?
No questions. I move that we approve order number 215.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved 2-0. All right, we'll try another one while we can. We'll go to order 216. This is another grant from Department of Mental Health for $200,000 for the Community Impact Unit.
Yes, so this is the jail arrest diversion grant. We've had this grant for 7 years now, and we have full funding, no match, for 2 clinicians to serve the 6 communities on the North Shore. It's based out of Beverly. We have 1 clinician covering Beverly and Ipswich, and the other clinician covers Essex, Gloucester, Rockport, and Manchester. And the program has been very, very successful. And our clinician, Lisa Macario, gravitated from this grant program over to Essex County TTAC. So we have a second new clinician starting on August 26. But we've had a really great success with that program, and Department of Mental Health is really very pleased with the impact that those 2 clinicians have made in the North Shore.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Counselor Sweeney?
No questions. I move that we approve order number 216.
Second. All in favor? Aye. It's approved 2-0. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Chairman, would you like us to wrap up? Yes, please. Okay. Make a motion to, or I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Appreciate you doing a short minute here with us, doing some of the work in committees. I'm going to go ahead and call to order and open up the 7:45 public hearing on Order 208, loan authorization.
Order 208, City of Beverly, ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 7:45 PM at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, City Council Chambers, relative to a request that the city appropriates the sum of $1,500,000 to pay costs of repairing and rehabilitating the Beverly Central Fire Station, including the payment of all costs incidental thereto, and to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said sum under MGL Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or any other enabling authority, and that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. And this was published on Monday, August 5th.
Good, thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Ailes. How are you?
Thank you. I'll just maybe kick off the public hearing with kind of the mechanics of what the administration's asking for. Mayor Cahill's here and Commissioner Collins, as well as Chief O'Connor, to answer any questions that are specific to the project or timing or disruptions, things like that. But generally, as the letter indicated, what we're seeking here is an appropriation of $1.5 million to complement the already appropriated $1.25 million to complete the project, which now, if this is approved, would have a project budget of $2.75 million. Now, the goal of this request is that we can continue the ball rolling with the project. We've gotten bids in for certain components of the project. There's some, as we'll get into, I'm sure, in a little bit, there's some aspects of the project that we're still in the final phases of design around. But the majority of this amount is supported with hard bids that we bid out for certain components of this. I would also say that the mechanism that we're using right now, which is a loan authorization, is a tool that we've used in the past when we're seeking funding at this point in the fiscal cycle, where we've already started the fiscal year, but we haven't yet certified our free cash values. So the Division of Local Service does not allow us to access the free cash balance until they've certified it, which typically takes place later in fall. And so in the interim, what this will allow us to do is legally contract with the contractors and keep the project going. Once we receive the certification figures from DLS, we would then come back before you and request that we transfer the same value of free cash into the project and rescind the loan order, basically buy out the loan order, so we never actually end up borrowing any money for the project. It's simply a mechanical mechanism that we're using tonight. So I'm going to stop there because I'm sure there's a few questions about specifics around the projects and different phasing of the different aspects of it. So unless anyone has questions specific to the financing component.
Councilor Rotundo.
It's to do with dollar amount. I know this is the starting point, so really two questions, if I may.
Yes, sir.
One is this sufficient for the full project of the fire station? And then the second question is, how long will this money be sitting there in the account? Will we be intending on expending it quickly? I mean, we allocated the $1.25 million 2 years ago, and we're really just starting to steamroll it, what, 6 months ago or so? So the question is timing with this new appropriation, this additional appropriation of money, and do you expect additional more being requested in the future for the project?
So this project, the Central Fire Station, has multiple aspects to it, right? The parts of it that we're addressing with this appropriation have to do with the exterior brickwork and the envelope, the windows, the roof, some HVAC improvements, and some electrical upgrades. Also, any exterior doors including an estimate for the garage doors as well. So all of that would be covered by this appropriation. We are ready to go. Like I said, we've got the bids. The contractor is waiting for our response to their bids. So as soon as, if it is approved, we would likely, by the end of this week, be entering into some form of agreement with them or a bid award. And the project will take off from there.
Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Ailes, for addressing Councilor Rotundo's question. To dive into greater detail, you mentioned the components of the project, which is specific to the exterior work. They've been mentioned in the materials we've received. Could you break down approximately how the $2.75 million will be divided amongst those components? And specifically what I'm interested in is if there is an estimate at this point in time and what the cost of the HVAC work and a potential electrical service upgrade would be, as those seem to be like significant components of a project that might outpace the $2.75 million that would be set aside if we were to approve this appropriation.
Sure. So I'm happy to give you what I've got here as notes, but I'd also invite Commissioner Collins and the mayor to jump in if there's more detail that they'd like to provide. But the bids that we've received to date are, now keep in mind, with this approval, it would be a $2.75 million project. So the bids we have, hard bids of $1.687 million. And that covers the bid for all the envelope work, the windows, and the roof work. And the non-garage exterior doors, so like entry doors. In addition to that, we have an allotment of $130,000 for estimate for the garage doors. And the electrical and HVAC components, we're carrying $775,000 for that. And Mr. Collins can get into this a little bit more, but we do have design. We're far along in that design enough where we feel confident that that's a fair amount to be holding for that component of this phase of the project. So when you add all those two up, that's about just a hair under $2.6 million, and the remaining $150 will cover construction oversight by our engineering firm.
Thank you, Mr. Ailes. And of the $700,000 or so, I don't remember the exact figure that you cited for HVAC and electrical service upgrade, is it primarily the electrical service upgrade that's the bulk of that $700,000, or is it a pretty even split?
I'm gonna ask Commissioner Collins to come up because he's been neck deep in some of those discussions.
If I could just add a couple of notes for context, and then Commissioner Collins has all of it both on paper and in his head, so can best speak to everything here. One thing I do want to ask is that if you folks vote to approve this request tonight, I know that you can procedurally call for a reconsideration vote, and if then that vote were to fail, then we could move forward without the waiting period that typically is necessary. We're ready to sign the contract on the $1.687 million for the envelope work, for the roof, for the masonry, exterior masonry work that's needed, for the windows, as Mr. Ailes said, for the entry doors that you walk through. The overhead doors for the vehicles is a separate need of about $130,000. So that's one. If you folks are willing to do that, that would just save us that additional period, and they could go ahead and sign the contracts tomorrow. Second, Mr. Ailes may have mentioned, but the most recent contracts that we have signed to keep things moving forward are for bidding and construction services with our consultant and for work to complete the design of the electrical and HVAC improvements, because as you've heard, we have estimates on the HVAC electrical. We won't be ready to go out and RFP them until the additional design is done, and we want to move quickly on that as well. To answer the broader question, how quickly will this be spent? The goal is to be spending the lion's share of it, immediately, and on the electrical HVAC as soon as possible. So let me ask Mr. Collins to come up, and I know he has more insights to share. Thanks.
Commissioner Collins, all yours.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. This is a obviously important project to all of you as well as to us. We'd love nothing better to have had this project completed a long time ago, but like every project, it's not as simple as just going in and replacing windows. It's an old building and it has all the typical old building stuff that you run into. To your question specifically, we don't have a detailed estimate of the electrical and mechanical work right now, but the big picture components are the HVAC work is what's driving the electrical upgrades. If you go in the building's built in '54, and unless I go on eBay, I can't buy things like breakers for the electrical panel. Those things are long since obsolete. So if you go into the basement of the building, it looks like warts on the electrical panel because they can't get any of the components. They bust off with a little disconnect here and a sub panel there, and it's a mess down there. It's not the way a building should be, and there's really no capacity to expand it any further, nor in good conscience should we. The building currently, the air conditioning, when it was built, the building had no air conditioning. It was 1954. They didn't do those things back then. We try to give a little bit more civilized situation now, and so the building has been air conditioned by window units, which are not the most efficient way to do it. The code also demands, we're a stretch code community, so the new windows are so much more efficient. There's really no opportunity to take a panel out, say, like we've done sometimes, and replace it with a window air conditioner. So really we're left with two basic options, one of which I thought we would go through, which is a small rooftop unit like that is not working right now at City Hall, or partially working. Something where you have ductwork distributing through it. There's a couple of problems. There's just not enough room for the ductwork, and the roof is not designed to support any real additional weight. So we would have to get into serious structural modifications to put a rooftop unit. It just didn't seem worth it. So we're gonna go with some split units, conventional, almost like you would put in your house, similar to a split unit you might put in your house, a little bit more robust. And they'll serve the sleeping quarters and the office spaces. So the second floor will be air conditioned in that manner. So it's important that we complete that work before next cooling season, because their window units will be able to stay in place throughout this cooling season, and by the time the windows get replaced, it'll be cooler, so they won't have to worry about cooling the building. So we need to complete the electrical and HVAC work before next summer, and we have plenty of time to get that done. There's the existing electrical service is just about taxed for what's there, because you can picture in 1954, nobody had cell phones, they didn't have portable radios, the fire department, so there's a lot more stuff in the building. Cascade system for the breathing apparatus, the extractors. They had rubber fire gear back in the day, and now it's all turnout gear that has extractors and dryers, and none of these demands existed. The radio demands, and a lot of the radio componentry will stay in the current dispatch office when the building's done. So we're really above and beyond the current capacity of the electrical service. It needs a new service, and it'll be a new service right from the manhole in the street all the way in, and it'll allow us to clean up all of the mess that's in there right now. And then someday we may continue through the rest of the building. But for now, it's just the new service, a new generator, because we want to be able to pick up the entire load. The current generator is not sized to pick up the new load, so we'll replace that generator. That was a second-hand generator to the building anyway, so this will be a way to get us a brand-new generator that will be reliable and will carry the load for the whole building. And that's about it for electrical.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. To stick with the piece about the HVAC in particular, I know that in the capital plan, there's been kind of two phases, exterior work for Central Fire Station, and then a need for interior work some point in the future. The exterior work obviously has been clearly defined. That's what's before us now. The interior work has not been clearly defined. But in the capital plan, one component of the interior work that's flagged are HVAC improvements. I know obviously this exterior work is going to address, it sounds like a pretty significant HVAC upgrade. Do you see, if this appropriation is approved and this work is completed, a need for additional HVAC improvements for the fire station going forward, or is this going to address that need and then it's just a matter of the
This
living
addresses
quarters?
most of it. So there will be, so we're going to leave the gas-fired boiler, hot water boiler in place. So the apparatus floor will still be heated by hot water. We're not going to take out the hot water heating system on the second floor, so it can be there to augment the heat pumps if need be. So we're not going to remove it at this time. So sure, there could be a future phase where we do something different. Those, we need to do, at the minimum, like, and in the future, the unit heaters on the apparatus floor are long in the tooth. 1954, they're still the originals, things like that. At a minimum, that needs to be done. It's really tough to air condition an apparatus floor. You can imagine there's doors everywhere, opening and closing all the time. So that probably isn't in the cards to air condition the apparatus floor. So this greatly reduces the need. It locks us into a path to a certain extent. We would like, we firmly believe that where possible, geothermal is absolutely the best heating source you could possibly get. But this is not bad, and this will get us a modern heating system and cooling system, because these heat pumps nowadays provide heat. So this will provide most of the heat necessary for the second floor for the foreseeable future. So yeah, there's an additional phase of HVAC work, but this will sort of take the place of most of any future HVAC work.
Got it. Thank you, Commissioner Collins. I do have some larger questions about the plan for the second phase, but I'll defer to my colleagues for now, Mr. Vice President.
Super. Counselor Houseman.
Thank you. So I look forward to the additional questions from Mr. Sweeney about the details, which may address some of the things I'm interested in finding out as well. So I'm going to ask sort of a separate question, at least at this stage of the hearing, without going back sort of into the history of how we got here. I am concerned about what we've discussed with the administration about reports from the engineering department on, if you will, management of projects going forward, so the city council can sort of follow along of what's going on.
Sorry, say that last part again?
So right now, the mayor, through the engineering department, is committed to providing regular updates as to what's going on in various different projects in the city, capital fund projects.
I will just say up front, I do not share your concern with our project management or the project management of the engineering department. I think you might be on an island there.
Okay, my concern is about the council being able to follow what's going on. I'm not addressing the management. I'm
well, that's what you said.
The communication.
So just clarifying that.
The communication of the management so that the council knows what's going on a timely basis with projects. So with that, and knowing that you have contracts ready to sign, when will we get a report from Assistant Commissioner Barber next on sort of the stages, say the three most prominent benchmarks in the next 3 months, once these contracts are signed, that are anticipated to be accomplished?
Well, I think the mayor's talked about doing quarterly reports. This project, because it's just starting out in its actual construction phase, there might be some information we could share. Initially, it's, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, what exactly are you asking?
Mr. President, and through you, so we committed to quarterly updates here, and I'm expecting the next quarterly update to be either the second September meeting or one of the October meetings. I think the earliest of those three that we can, that the agenda, allows for it would be the second. You're supposed to be getting a monthly update through Assistant Commissioner Barber, and I trust that, that is and will happen. And so our goal is to make sure that we all have that clear view of what's going on. As far as exact formatting, we're going to put things in front of you as in the best format that we believe will make it understandable for all. We'll make it come alive. We'll make it work. I'm not committing to any particular format. I understand you have a certain way you want to see it. And I appreciate that, and we'll listen to that. At the same time, we'll get things in front of you as we best see them, being shareable, being of value. And as I said, the next time that we'll be in this setting should be, before we get too far into fall.
Okay, through you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We have started getting reports from Assistant Commissioner Barber. I think they're very helpful. They don't, I'm not committed to a specific format, but some kind of piece of information that allows us to look at how the status is evolving and whether or not expected benchmarks, whatever you want to call them, are sort of being hit. And I know when Mr. Barber was here, and I raised this last time, he said he thought that was a good idea. So I'll just continue to have conversations with him about format and what I'm hoping we can get as a council to sort of help us understand that, so we don't find ourselves in the same position we did with the library, basically, that we find out what's happening and see in a measurable way how progress is being made. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other, yes, Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. Counselors have covered some of my questions already. I think all kind of stemming from, we know a ton of work has gone into this process so far over the last couple of years, and that there are contracts ready to sign. And I know I was just looking, as I mentioned in July, I was hoping to get before this meeting a basic outline of the components of what we're being asked to approve in funding. So good to get some of those tonight. I was also wondering what the cost of the design work and consulting services have been to date, and the funding source of those, because there was, investigation into what's needed, several rounds of design work and decision-making along the way. So wanted to get some sense of that scope of work.
Yeah, we've had some preliminary scoping work that initially evaluated the exterior envelope, looking for defects, then there's a phase of looking for hazardous materials, because it's a 1954 building. It's a guarantee, it's a certainty that there's hazardous materials. Just how much and where are they, so we can work around them safely. Most of the original work was about $150,000-ish, was paid for out of my budget, because I didn't, to Councilor Rotundo's point earlier, we had the appropriation. I wanted to extend the life of that appropriation as much as possible, so I paid for that work out of the DPS budget, not my money, out of the city's DPS budget, in order to preserve as much of the appropriation as possible for construction. So that the initial design and whatnot was about $150,000, and we have two more contracts that we just recently signed that came out of the appropriation, which is construction services, and the final design, as the mayor pointed out, of the electrical mechanical work.
Go ahead, yes.
Great. And so those last two contracts are for how much?
91 and 52.3, I think.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes. Also, just you mentioned the hazardous materials. That was something I wanted to just follow up on, how that was being built into the cost, if that was a cost driver for the
where is it carried?
Yeah, and is that built into either the $1.68 million?
It's built into a little bit, so the contractor is going to carry some of the cost, because there's an extra cost to bring in specialists to abate some of, it's mostly like caulking around the windows. It's really isolated stuff. Fortunately, it's not widespread, and some flashing on the roof. So it's fortunately, it's things that are relatively straightforward in the grand scheme of things. So there's a little bit carried in the construction side of it, and then there's a specialist we hire, in addition to the architects and the designers. We hire a third party to manage and monitor that work, to make sure it's done appropriately, legally, safely, all those things. So there's a little bit already encapsulated in the design funding, and the rest of it, the actual work, is in the bid. It's in the contract line items.
One more, yep.
Yes.
The low bid was this one. And I could tell you in a minute if I look on my phone what the bid tab was, but it was pretty wide range, as there always is. We just opened up another bid, and the two bids were $1 million apart. I mean, it's like, one was, 30% more than the other. This is we have not worked with this contractor before. We looked at their references. They're excellent contractor. Their bid came in below the engineer's estimate. Your earlier memos indicated we thought the construction estimate was about 1.82 million, and they came in under that, which caused some pause. We were like, wait a minute, why? So it turns out that they self-perform quite a bit of the work, which allows them to do that with less overhead, less expense, and that was the major reason behind it. So it's great. We're value added for us. So we're excited to work with this contractor. New to us, but come with great references.
Great, thank you.
Counselor Spang.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this question would be better directed to, but people in the neighborhood have had a lot of construction through that area, through National Grid and some other projects. So if there's anything that we can do through either the mayor's office, I would offer to help too, to help communicate with residents when any work that would be impacting the neighborhood, or if there's going to be a lot of cars in the area that they may not be expecting. Just anything that we can do on that to get the information out up front would be helpful.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I hope that this doesn't impact the neighborhood greatly. We're going to stage the building, and they'll work behind on the staging, and I think we will probably offer them the barrister's lot, if you know what I mean, on Hale Street. Not exclusively, but if they want to park there, because that's a very lightly used lot. It just doesn't have much utilization during the day. So I think that could take the pressure off the neighborhood, and I don't think it'll be, we hope, and we will work with the contractor. Again, this is a Boston contractor that works very close to other buildings, so they know how to do the right thing, and we'll make sure they do. But appreciate the help.
Thank you.
That's it.
And then I just didn't know if Chief O'Connor, you had anything that you wanted to add in.
Thank you very much, everybody, for having me here tonight. As you know, this has been going on for a little bit. I can't tell you how excited we are to be moving forward with this project. The bottom line is my folks show up to work every day. The conditions that the building are in right now, they take care of that building every day. Clean in the morning, eat, work, sleep, work, eat again. So they deserve to have a nice, modern building. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that kind of come to fruition. We've been talking about it for a long time, and there's a number of reasons why we're still talking about it today. And I'll be honest with you, I'm in part to blame for that, making sure that some of the needs that we had were met. I just happy to finally be in a position where we can actually start doing some work. And I really and truly appreciate all the work of the folks that have been kind of leading this project. And I appreciate the support that all of you have had, and I appreciate the patience. So my folks have been super patient too, and they are very much looking forward to getting this going. So thank you.
Counselor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you, Chief O'Connor. I think to that point that you had made about the firefighters of the city deserving more modern living quarters, while the scope of the project as outlined would certainly go a long way to getting Central Fire Station to that point, based on the capital plan, there still seems to be a need for improvements to the interior of the station. Commissioner Collins, you mentioned that we're pretty much going to be addressing the HVAC concerns absent a larger geothermal retrofit, which it sounds like that's not something that we're going to be considering anytime soon. So if we are tackling what appears to be the bulk of the project, if you just pull out the needs listed in the capital plan, I would think the only things left to tackle would be upgrades to the interior of the station to facilitate both living quarters for male and female firefighters, which I know is something we need to improve on, and some other cosmetic type of repairs that I would think would be smaller in scope than what we're currently undertaking. However, I know that the cost of any such interior repairs wasn't outlined in the capital plan, and there were a handful of funding sources tagged as potential sources, which to me kind of illustrates that there hasn't yet been a detailed conversation about when to tackle that work. Is that the case? Have there been conversations about the interior work coming not too long after this work is completed? Or is that something, what I see as kind of the phase two to getting to the point that Chief O'Connor noted of a completely modern fire station? Short question is basically, have we identified what that will cost and a time frame for doing the remaining interior work?
We don't know what the scope is yet. So that's the biggest problem. I can't tell you what the timeline or what the cost might be because the scope hasn't been really pinned down yet. I think it doesn't, if you've been in this firehouse, it doesn't take long to figure out that really we could use a new firehouse. That would be ideal. And if we had a new firehouse, it would be probably 2 to 3 times the size of this current one. That's really not in the cards here. So we don't have the land, we don't have the money, we don't, it's just not going to happen. The community wrestled with this a number of years ago. I don't want to speak for the chief, but this is, it was a very raw conversation about moving Central Fire, and that didn't go too well. So we have to work within the envelope that we have. I can't throw the fire department out of there, so we're going to have to work around an occupied building. So we're going to have to very carefully decide what's a must-have and what's not. At a minimum, new bathrooms, at a minimum. And really, the entire space needs to be renovated, deserves to be renovated. As the chief said, this is the staff there are there 24/7, holidays or not, hot and cold, and it's, they deserve the best of accommodations and the safest of accommodations, so we're going to do the best we can. But that's going to be a series of compromises to make it all work within the footprint that we have, the budget that we have, and around a live firehouse to make sure that we don't compromise operations. Having said that, there'll be a future phase. I don't know exactly when we're going to start that, of trying to figure out how do we get to that point. We did some preliminary looking around, and there's just not a lot of room there. So it's definitely a puzzle that needs to be solved to figure out how to move all of the different spaces around to maintain operations, but then also provide, forget about the fact that we can't support female firefighters. The existing bathroom facilities are 1954. They're disgusting. They need to be replaced. So that's at a minimum, but what would be nice to do? Renovate the entire building. We can't do that. We know that. So we're going to have to do it a little bit at a time and see what we can do reasonably and see how we can phase the work and see what the best way to finance that work is. So there's a lot of work to do to plan that out, and we'll have to get back to you on that. I think they're all great questions, and we just don't have answers at this time. It's all stuff that is next on the list.
So thank you, Commissioner Collins. It's encouraging to hear. Obviously, I understand that we're not in a position to build an entirely new fire station, which is why we're taking on this work. But what I really wanted to hear is that the administration was not going to complete this work and then just continue to move on to another project and ignore what I see as a pretty necessary set of interior renovations that you outlined. So I hope that we can all partner together to find a way to
we couldn't agree more
get
that
that work
these
done.
are critical renovations, and we've made a lot of great improvements to North Beverly, even though it doesn't look like it from the outside. The quality of life inside the building's a lot better. We actually need to do some exterior stuff there. But little by little, we need to continue to invest in the current building stock that we have, the current fire stations that we have, because it doesn't appear that new station's on the horizon anytime soon for the city.
No, I completely agree. Thank you, Commissioner. That's all from me, Mr. Vice President.
Councilor Houseman?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Yes, Mr. Collins, I've got some sort of scope or design questions. I have a finance question for Mr. Ailes, but while you're here. Just a couple of, I think basically yes/no questions. Are all of the windows and this exterior work, is the scope of this project going to include replacement of all of the windows? And if so, will they be double pane or triple pane?
I believe they're all double pane. All of the windows will be replaced. They're the latest and greatest. It's not as much the panes themselves as the thermal breaks of the frames. So what you have with stretch code type windows is a lot less glass, frankly, you know, and a lot more insulation to try to provide that thermal break. Because if you look at a window, the cold is being transferred by the metal frames mostly, largely. These are very, very high performance windows. Low E glass, all that stuff, and really the engineering has gone into the thermal breaks and the air sealing of the windows to make them as efficient as possible.
Will all of the brickwork on the building be repointed as a part of this project?
We wrestled with doing 100% repointing or selective repointing, and what we opted for, because much of the masonry is in really good shape, as is the mortar. There's no degradation whatsoever in a good chunk of the mortar. So we've identified selected areas, and when I say selected, if you look at the drawings and it highlights, they're hashed out what areas, it's a lot of the building. And then we built in an allowance for doing a bunch more unspecified pointing, so that if once we get up on scaffolding and start looking, oh, we should do another 20, 30%, we can handle that. It's built into the bid. It's an item in the bid. If we don't do it, it's money saved. And if we do it, it's money that's already accounted for. So most of the building doesn't need repointing. Really, a lot of the effort is focused at the top of the windows. Every window has a steel angle iron that holds the brick above the window up. It's called a lintel. And those steel lintels tend to rust over time. When they rust, they get fatter. When they get fatter, they break the joints in the brick, and you can look above all the windows and you see those little cracks that go up. That's iron jacking from the lintels rotting. So all that lintel work will be cut out. The lintels will be restored, either replaced or stripped and tar coated, and then new through wall flashing, copper flashing put over these lintels and up behind the brickwork to keep any water from getting down behind the windows, all that on and on. So there's a lot of brickwork going on, but we agreed that it didn't need to be 100% repoint.
Okay.
That's a long answer, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's quite all right. No, that was very, very, very helpful to as the son of a bricklayer, I sort of understand some of the points you're making. So, in the library project, one thing we found out was there, you know, as you talked about the thermal breaks and the venting along the roof. Is this project scope going to include assessing and addressing any kind of issue, I guess, above the first floor where all the trucks are and the doors are open a lot, of thermal breaks between the walls and the roof line? Or is it?
This is a wildly different construction than the library.
Yeah.
We don't have, you know, the library, in a lot of places, we essentially have a layer of plywood with plastic siding over it, and that's it, you know? Here, we've got typical old school brick with block backup, sort of what we used to call first-class construction. Mm-hmm. And that's a traditional, it doesn't leave any room for insulation, which is the bad part of it. So you've got brick, there's an air gap, and then there's block behind it. Brick always leaks, it's designed to leak. It's just, you gotta manage the water that gets in behind it. So that air gap provides that modicum of insulation. Then we have largely inefficient walls. So one of the things we might talk about at a future date is, do we frame out walls on the inside or somehow try to put insulation inside the building? That would be part of an interior renovation discussion. Is it worth it, you know? Yeah. Is the juice worth the squeeze in that sense? So it's, like I said, totally different style of construction. The fact that we have 3 inches of insulation on the roof, we're going to end up with somewhere between 5+, depending on the tapered, inches of insulation on the roof. So the roof itself will get much more efficient. It'll be a white PVC roof. Right now it's black rubber. So in the summertime, the heat load will be a lot less. It'll be a lot easier to keep cool, which is where a lot of electrical demand comes from. So.
Thank you for that. The scope of, I don't hear anything in this scope describing changing the dimensions of the openings that the trucks come in and out of, correct? There's no.
No, that would be very difficult on this building, and it's not as much in this particular building. It's not as much the opening as it is the first structural beam behind, about 14, 15 feet inside the building, because the ramp has an angle up, and the truck actually makes it through the door and then almost hits that beam hanging down. That's why a few years ago, we leveled off the ramp, so the truck comes up and then levels off and then makes it under the beam. So it's not as much the opening, and those openings are pretty much maxed out. So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of opportunity to gain height or width on these particular doors.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the HVAC system and geothermal or not. I know with the library, part of the discussion was if you went to air source heat pumps, would it possibly make the library geothermal ready? I actually guess it was part of the City Hall project discussion at one point. Will this project scope render the outcome to be geothermal ready, if that ever seemed to appropriate down the line? And if so, what does geothermal ready mean?
Geothermal ready would be, in this case, no. It's not, these are going to be independent air source heat pumps that we're not married to them, but they're going to have a service life of 15 or so years. I don't know. These are smaller equipment that is not going to be designed to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. So this is, like I said, it's very similar to what you'd find in your house, but slightly more commercial. So our future selves can decide if there's a better option at that time. We're not stuck with anything. Geothermal ready would be at the police station. Really, the magic is happening. We have heat pumps, just like we're going to have at the firehouse, that are cooled by water, as opposed to at the firehouse, they're cooled by air. So if we're using water source heat pumps, regardless of where that water comes from, and the water can come from the ground, as in ground source or geothermal heat pumps, or it can come from, if you see in an industrial setting, cooling towers. You go up to Excellus, you go into Boston, you see big cooling towers with the water raining down. All they're trying to do is take heat out of the water that they're using to cool their heat pumps. So in the case of City Hall, we're going to go, when we say geothermal ready, we're going to be circulating a liquid, water and antifreeze, basically, that will go to the heat pumps, and there'll be individual heat pumps throughout the building that will give out their heat or take heat from that liquid, depending on the season. And then there is going to be a master heat pump or heat pumps that will heat or cool that liquid as necessary. So in the wintertime, they'll be adding heat to that liquid, and in the summertime, they'll be taking heat out of that liquid as necessary. To make the building geothermal, you take that heat pump away and you drill some wells. You now circulate that liquid through wells. So you eliminate that outdoor heat pump.
Okay, thank you for those illustrations and answers. I do have one finance-related question, but I'll see if anyone else has questions for Mr. Collins.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
So I think my question is for Mr. Ailes. Thank you, Commissioner Collins. It really has to do with rescinding the loan order. So Mr. Perry has indicated that the loan order for the culvert project, I believe at the Cummings Center, has not yet been rescinded. And if you could elaborate on the status of that and how that would relate to rescinding the loan order for this project on a timely basis.
So this mechanism is something we've used a fair amount of times in the past. The culvert project that you're referring to, Counselor, was funded via the sewer fund. And when we have these loan authorizations, the mechanism we use to rescind them is putting cash into the project. So until money's spent and cash is needed in the project, there's no need to rescind the loan order. The project is still ongoing. In the situation of the culvert project, I believe it's at the tail end, if not completed. And so we know that that project, the expense level in that project, and I got to check with Mr. Barber in the morning, but we think that it's primarily done. There will be a free cash transfer, or I should say, an enterprise fund balance transfer this fiscal year to cover the remaining costs in that fund, which will then rescind the rest of that loan order. But we can't do that until, one, the fund balances are certified, and two, the work has been completed.
Thank you. So the culvert work has not been yet completed as far as you know?
I think the actual culvert clearing has been completed. There was some discussion at one point about some engineering work that may still go on further, but the culvert cleaning is complete.
Okay. And in terms of the loan order for this project, you would anticipate that this loan order would be rescinded?
Yes.
Before December of this year?
Before the end of the fiscal year, we will come to you, depending upon the timing of the certification. There's no risk in having it outstanding because we're not borrowing any money for it, so there's no added cost to the taxpayer. It's just a timing mechanism.
So it could be as late as June of next calendar year?
We'll rescind it. Yeah, it's our intent to use this year's free cash balance to rescind this loan order. What I'd like to avoid is if the project comes in a little under budget and we're getting tied to a specific time frame to rescind the order, and we put the full value of free cash in there, then there's another order that we need to do to take that money back out of the fund and back into the general fund. I'd like to avoid that if we can. It's just unnecessary added steps. So we'll wait as long as we can till we know with certainty what the total project cost is. Hopefully it's under this 2.75. We're fairly confident it will be. But how much under, we don't know. And we'll transfer whatever that net cost is in the end and fully rescind the loan order.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ailes.
Anything else, Counselor? Is there any members of the public that would like to weigh in on this order, number 208? Seeing none, I'm going to close this public hearing on order 208 and refer it back to Finance and Property. Councilors, what I'd like to do is, I know we had some stuff to finish up in committee. Let's go ahead and re-break for committee work. And can we get what we need to get done in the next 15 minutes? Everybody seem, let's do that. Come back by 8:45.
I think we'll take up Order 208, which is the loan authorization. We just had the public hearing on. Do you have any further questions or comments? Councilor Sweeney?
I do not. I would move that we approve order number 208.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Approved 2-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to Order 217. Ms. Barrett, this is a grant, $76,000 Energy Conservation Block Grant. Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yes, so the federal government gave out block grants to every city and town, basically. And we received $76,510, I think based on population. It's pretty broad. It can be used anything sustainability related. So we love, and I didn't have to do a grant application for it, I should point that out. We love getting money, essentially for free. And this will be used for energy conservation measures for existing buildings, vehicle electrification and assistance with developing building decarbonization. We haven't decided which of the 3 areas it will be used for. That will be probably decided in the next, month or so. But it's basically for sustainability efforts.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Sweeney?
No questions from me.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Approved 2-0. We'll take up order 218, grant for $863, right? GPS lock boxes for Council on Aging shuttle buses. And I understand there's a match on this one of $80?
Yep, there's a tiny 10% match of $86.39, and that'll be covered out of the Council on Aging operating budget. I just wanted to thank Suzanne Koch for applying for this grant. The lock boxes are in the shuttle buses and vans, and you put like devices in them so you're not distracted when you're driving. So that'll be a great addition.
Very cool. Okay, Counselor Sweeney, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor, aye. Order 218 is passed. Okay, 219, another grant, Ms. Barrett, DOT, Senior Center Transportation Program. What can you tell us about this one?
So we actually have received this grant previously in 2018, you might recall, for a shuttle bus that we had gotten 6 years ago. And our newer Assistant Director with Council on Aging, Suzanne Koch, this was the first grant she had ever worked on. So she and I worked on it together several times. It's always helpful to have someone who has experience in grants sort of walking you through the application. It eases some anxiety that some folks might have. This one was pretty complicated. They needed a lot of data, how many riders we have, what types of riders. And we submitted the grant quite a while ago, actually. I think it was December. And we found out in early June that we received the grant, earlier mid-June. And there is a small match for this grant as well that will come out of the Council on Aging budget. But I just wanted to thank Suzanne Koch for all of her work on this. It was very exciting when we got this grant. I always say no news is good news. So when the news finally arrives and it's a grant award, it's very exciting for our municipal staff that work so hard to bring in extra revenue to support different programs and projects and initiatives. So congratulations to Suzanne.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Counselor Sweeney?
I have no questions. I would move that we approve order number 219.
I'll second, but I do have a question for Mr. Ailes on this one. The match for $38,000, was that budgeted? It says it's coming out of the Council on Aging's operating budget. Is that something that was planned for, or where do we find the money for that?
Yeah, there's sufficient funds available within their operating budget, and every time these come before you, our internal process is we work with the department head, Catherine does, we identify the funding source, and we make sure that it's either already been appropriated and there's sufficient funds, and then I'll sign off and it'll continue through the process to ultimately get before you. So you can be assured that any of the communication around the grants that get before you have been vetted by my office. There's sufficient funds budgeted. If not, there'll be a separate component to that requesting an appropriation.
Okay.
So it's fine. I know it's a long-winded answer, but sometimes it's helpful to
Oh,
understand
that
the
actually makes me
process.
feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a motion that is seconded to approve. All in favor? Aye. That's approved 2-0. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ailes and I work very closely, so he sees a lot of me, whether he wants to or not. Usually it's good news when I walk in.
Been busy, it looks
Yeah.
like, yes. All right, Order 220, this is another federal aviation grant for, what is this for? Completion of an aeronautical environmental assessment.
Yes, and we have our airport manager, Gabriel Hannafin, here, and so I'd like him to talk a little bit about this grant. There is a small match for it as well that's already been budgeted for, so.
Please, Mr. Hannafin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening.
How are
Thank
you?
you. Good. How are you?
Good.
So this grant is related to the upcoming FY27 a reconstruction of the main runway at the airport. So before that, we get to actually put shovels in the ground. For that, we have to get all of our ducks in a row and check all the regulatory and environmental boxes. And so this environmental assessment, environmental notification form, and environmental impact report is all within this grant. So that just looks at the impacts that the proposed runway reconstruction, as well as a FY 2030 taxiway extension will have on nearby wetlands and any other environmental impacts that those projects will have.
Thank you, Mr. Hannafin.
Thank you.
Counselor Sweeney, any questions?
No questions from me.
Same question, Mr. Ailes. The match on this one, 5% match, budgeted, planned for, et cetera.
Mr. Hannafin, the commission all kind of foresaw the need for this and other maybe smaller matches throughout the year. So it's built into their FY 25 operating budget.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Approved 2-0. Okay, I'll take up order 221. This is a gift from the Beverly Veterans Advisory Council. I'm familiar with this one, but if you wouldn't mind.
Yes.
Saying a few words.
Allison Babin, who's our library director, was working with the Veterans Advisory Council, and they would like to gift a memorial bench in memory of U.S. Army veteran and longtime Veterans Agent Jerry Jalebi. And Allison sent along a few things to share with you. The estimated cost of the bench and the installation is about $5,000. They are expecting to have a dedication ceremony sometime after the bench is installed, probably in September or October, to recognize him. And then I'm going to thank Councilor St. Hilaire for his involvement in the process and able to, if you want to add a few words about.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Ms. Barrett. That was well said. Mr. Jalebi was a longtime veterans agent, Beverly Farms resident, and there was a desire to recognize him by a number of folks, and so just kind of brought some people together and was very glad to get done. Counselor Sweeney, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second. And all in favor? Aye. That is approved 2-0. Okay. I think that's all that we want to take up tonight. Counselor Sweeney, Order 177 was a letter from yourself and Counselor Bowen related to second water meters. I'd like to schedule some time this fall, if that's okay with both of you, to have some further discussion on that.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to wait until council president's back and communicate with public services to find a good time that works for everybody.
And Mr. Ailes will probably need your help with that one as well.
Sorry.
Second water meters discussion. I recall. All right, so with that, I think we're wrapped up for tonight on finance and property. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I would like to make a motion to go out of order and to do reports from committees first before motions and orders.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. So, reports from committees.
Order number 201, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding an appropriation to transfer funds from the National Grid MOA related to the 115 kV electric transmission cable project in the amount of $410,000 to be deposited into the general fund, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? Questions comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adopting the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 7-0.
Order 208, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a loan authorization request for $1,500,000 for repairs and improvements to the Central Fire Station, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Vice.
Yes.
Mr. Vice President, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider with the hope and intent that it fails so that the administration can act on this starting tomorrow.
There's a motion on the floor to reconsider. Second? Okay. Any questions or comments? All opposed? All in favor? All opposed? Motion fails 7-0.
Order 213, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant of $102,973.14 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Assistance to Firefighters Grants Program to support the purchase of personal escape devices for each member of the Beverly Fire Department, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 214, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant of $54,100 municipal local cybersecurity grant through Executive Office of Public Safety and Security Office of Grants Research to be used to implement multi-factor authentication and to create a cybersecurity incident response plan, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries, passes 7-0.
Order 215, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant of $123,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health to continue funding the Essex County Training and Technical Assistance Center Crisis Intervention Training Program at the Beverly Police Department, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 216, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant of $200,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health Jail Arrest Diversion Program to continue funding 2 co-responder clinicians to support the Beverly Police Department's Community Impact Unit, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. Just a quick comment, as I have made before, when we accept this annual grant, it's an incredibly valuable program, and having 2 clinicians support multiple cities and towns around the region, we see the impact every day, and so I just encourage us as a city to think about investing city funds alongside what's necessary and important state funding to ensure that we continue to boost and expand that capacity in Beverly, and not only Beverly and surrounding towns. That's it.
Thank you for that. Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 217, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a $76,510 energy efficiency conservation block grant from the U.S. Department of Energy, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 218, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding an $863.86 MAR TAP Helping Hand mini grant from the Mass DOT to purchase GPS lock boxes for the Council on Aging shuttle buses and vans. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 219, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant for $149,325 from the Mass DOT 2024 Community Transit Grant Program to allow the city to acquire a new one-type LF 16-passenger minibus van for the Senior Center's Transportation Program. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 220, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom was referred the matter regarding a grant for $398,300, a four-year grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Aviation Administration for completion of an aeronautical environmental assessment, notification, and review of runways 16 to 34 and 19 to 27 for the Beverly Regional Airport. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 221, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom is referred the matter regarding the Beverly Veterans Advisory Council a gift of the installation of a memorial bench in memory of U.S. Army veteran and longtime Veterans Agent Jerome J. Jerry Jalebi Jr. at the Beverly Farms Library. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Submit the accompanying order and recommend its adoption.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 194, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding addressing some possible changes in the City Council rules. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the request.
Questions or comments? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. I was just curious, maybe hearing from legal, if there was further discussion, since the council president isn't here tonight but had introduced that measure, if there was further context or discussion to share.
Councilor Toffman?
Excuse me. There was no further discussion this evening. Council Legal Affairs had the discussion right before our summer recess. So I can't say I recall with great precision exactly how. Council Vice President?
Yes.
If I may, we are having problems with the microphones. Apparently, they cannot hear us on that end.
Yeah, sorry. My question was just about discussions that had happened since the council president is not here tonight, who had introduced it, if there was any context or any further discussion before reporting it back. That was my question.
Nothing since that meeting. I mean, there wasn't, so I'm just trying to think what,
Can't hear you.
I don't recall that we had any other further conversations about it. I was just trying to think if we did.
If Councilor Rotundo, if you could speak into the microphone, it would be easier to hear you.
Is this better?
It is. It is.
Gotcha. So unfortunately, like I said, I don't recall, we haven't had any further discussion since that night of the meeting, and it was a few months ago. So to answer, I can't really say anything substantial.
Counselor Bone, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Good. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 130, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding a request to make an amendment to Ordinance Section 270-66, Downtown Beverly Parking District, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. I don't know actually if I should be saving this for motions and orders,
We'll save it
so
for-
I'm going to skip
Yeah,
that.
Save that to motion orders.
Okay, so I'm going to put that over here. Order 202, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding a reappointment and waiver of residency for Richard Scanlon to serve on the Board of Assessors, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the reappointment.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 203, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding a reappointment of Robert, thank you, Bucksbaum, 12 Bertram Street, to serve as the Conservation Commission representative on Community Preservation Committee. I've considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows, to recommend the council approve the reappointment.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 204, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding an appointment of Nathan Seavey, 9 Kernwood Ave, to serve on the Economic and Community Development Council, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 206, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding an appointment of Brett Parent, 19 Somerset Ave, to serve on the Board of Registrars, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 223, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter regarding an application for Bridge Street Beverly Auto Service, Inc., 83 to 85 Bridge Street, for a secondhand motor vehicle Class 2 dealer's license. Have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the request.
Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, Order 205, the Committee on Public Services, to whom was referred the matter regarding the appointment of Scott White, 115 Collins Street, to serve on the Harbor Management Authority, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the appointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That's it. Okay, good. So back to motions and orders. We have 3. That'll be a first reading vote.
Okay. Order 130. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. 270-66 Downtown Beverly Parking District be amended so to add Section A, no person shall park a vehicle for a period of time longer than 2 hours between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, on the below listed streets unless he or she has a valid resident parking permit, unless specifically regulated otherwise. This time limitation shall not apply or be enforced against any passenger vehicle or motorcycle displaying a veteran, disabled veteran, National Guard awarded, nope. What? Okay. Sorry.
Come up just so that I can be heard.
Okay.
It was amended in legal affairs, and so there should be a second attachment that has writing on the top that says as amended.
There is. It is several pages long.
Yep, and then there should be just one red line section. I'm not sure
Okay.
of the,
Oh, wait, I think it's that. So residents who live within the following areas who possess a veterans parking sticker issued by the City of Beverly, Veteran Services Department shall be allowed to park in time-limited on-street parking for longer than 2 hours. Okay, and so that's as amended by Legal Affairs. Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments? Council Bowen.
Thank you, just in part because it is a little confusing in the summer break. If we could just get a quick summary of what's different from the original proposal, Thank you.
Yep. The original proposal would have allowed people who were not downtown residents, but also veterans, to park in the residential parking for more than 2 hours. The refined language makes it limited to people who are downtown residents and veterans.
Go ahead, Council Bowen.
Thank you. And the core spirit of anyone with the veterans plate or sticker not paying for metered pay to park is still part of what we would be approving tonight.
Yes, yep, this makes it provides a mechanism so that veterans who live downtown and register with the city as a veteran plate don't need to go through extra steps to qualify. They already qualify under the residential parking. So it just makes sure that no veteran pays at any time in the metered spaces, and downtown veterans do not get ticketed for parking in the residential spaces.
Other questions?
And a big thanks to Councilor Rotundo for
Yes.
proposing it.
So the question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. First reading.
Order 188, a proposed revision of the City of Beverly Ordinance 249 Stormwater Management. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. The order contains amendments to the Stormwater Ordinance, Chapter 249, to meet the requirements of the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System and the general permits for stormwater discharges from small municipal separate storm sewer systems in Massachusetts, and achieve compliance with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's stormwater regulations. The amendments provide controls to ensure the safeguard of public health and safety, public and private property, surface water, public drinking water, groundwater resources, recreational areas, aquatic habitats, and life in the environment as a whole by establishing minimum requirements and procedures to control the adverse effects of increased stormwater runoff, non-point source pollution associated with development and redevelopment, and erosion and sedimentation associated with construction. The full text of Order 188 can be found at the City Clerk's Office, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, Monday to Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., also available online at www.beverlyma.gov. Ordinance to take effect upon publication and final passage.
Any questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Order 191. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. Chapter 270, Section 42D, parking prohibited during certain months is amended as follows. Parking on the north side of Livingstone Ave from Carver Street to Woodland Ave from May 1st to September 1st between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. The full text of Order 191 can be found at the City Clerk's Office, 191 Cabot Street, Beverly, Massachusetts, Monday to Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., also available online at www.beverlyma.gov. Ordinance to take effect upon publication and final passage, and this was referred out of Legal Affairs with the expectation that a red line version be submitted to the full council.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Council Vaughn?
Thank you. One clarification on the end date. I know September 1st was in the original. I think the recommendation from Parking and Traffic used October 1st, which some of the other seasonal ones were. So just wanted to clarify that it's.
So this is a separate ordinance altogether. Originally, we were going to confine to what was originally listed there, but after discussing it, there's no need to go beyond the September 1st date because really it's to address the baseball season with the constriction of the street, and it really is to address safety issues right now with the bridge. At some point, hopefully it'll be, I know the commission, Parking Commission asked to have readdressed when temporary bridges opened as well. So a lot of these mitigations were put in play in regards to some of the issues that have been created due to the bridge construction, or lack of the bridge.
I just wanted to bring up that we did receive a letter sent as far as in from Parking and Traffic, and it came in on 8/15 that was added to this order, as far as everything for there goes. Any further questions or comments on this? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And that looks to finish up our business for the evening. Any messages, notes from any of the counselors? No? Yes, Counselor Houseman.
I just want to thank you for filling in for for President Flowers and commend you on the job you did this evening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Couldn't have done it with my sidekick over here. So, you know, I think we're the dynamic duo when everybody's out. I don't know, but it's all good. So all that, I make a motion. Whoops, sorry. Yes.
Just to
Counselor Smith.
remind everyone, the city clerk's office is going to be very busy with early voting next week, and then the state primary on Tuesday, September 3rd.
And on that, make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Carries 7-0. Meeting adjourned.